Welcome to the Choice, Change and Action podcast, where you get to choose, change and take action to create a different today and a different future. These are my stories of choice, change and action, along with the phenomenal guests I have on here. From a really young age, I've always desired to create a change in the world. The planet has been a constant inspiration to me, and Access Consciousness has shown me the tools to know that anything is possible. And I keep choosing. What are you going to choose?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Choice, Change and Action podcast. It's your unofficial podcast hijacker, Paula Peralta, and I'm here with Simone Milasas for part 2 of You Had Questions. We don't have answers because we don't really do answers. We just do questions. So welcome, Simone Milasas, to your own podcast.
Thank you. Woohoo! And the crowd goes wild again. We decided to do a part 2 because we had questions that you guys sent in on relationships, and we thought, let's do a part 2 because part 1, if you missed it, was last week. So go listen to that. And if you've listened to it and you're here, thank you for coming back. And no, we have anecdotes, we have funny stories, we have information, we have questions for you too, and a different way that you can look at being in relationships.
Totally. So these questions are pretty juicy, and I think it's really cool that we're doing a part 2 because we definitely talked a lot about creating your own relationship or a relationship that works for you in last week's episode. And today we're going to jump in to a question that I actually know you get asked a lot in your Relationship Done Different classes. So I'm really excited to have you address this. But one of the other questions that we got a lot is, how do you invite more relationships into your life? Or like, if you don't have a relationship, like what's the path, the process, the choices that you can make in order to create a relationship for yourself? Take it away.
Over to you, Paula. No.
You're like, I politely declined.
Yeah, yes. I'll plead the fifth. Is that what you do in America? You plead the fifth?
Yes.
No. No, and why are we making this joke? Because what I've seen over the years is every single person I know, pretty much, and I'm sorry, but every single person I know that goes, usually they're females. I do know some males who do this. I wish I was in a relationship. Oh my God, I wish I had someone. Why can't I find the one? That's the men. No, I'm kidding.
In that voice.
Yes, all of that, right? Whenever they're doing that, you don't want one. If you, whatever your situation is right now, that's what you're asking for. That's what you're choosing. Because your whole entire life, including relationships and sex, you choose, okay? You get to choose. I mean, I was reading this quote the other day about, Bob Dylan says, you don't find yourself, you create yourself. Mm-hmm. Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, always says, you got to choose. And I'm with both of them. It's like I'm with Bob Dylan and Gary Douglas. You've got to choose and you've got to create and you take the action, okay? So, I mean, I remember at one stage, when I'd broken up my last long-term relationship, and I did that thing really weirdly of going, oh my God, I'm probably never going to have sex again. Why? Like, I'm sorry. And so then I started joining dating apps, and a friend of mine was like, she's like, what do you want? And I said, to have sex. And she's like, lower the age I'm asking for. And I was like, are you kidding me? She's like, yeah, lower it. So I lowered it to like 28 years of age or something like that. Oh my God, you get so many young boys who are so interested in having sex with an older woman. And I was like, damn. And it's like, and then I was like, okay, I'm over that point of view. I can have sex whenever I want. Like but we come up with these presumptive realities of why we can't. But what I would like you to have a look at is, do you actually truly desire what you think you're asking for? Okay. Because it's like over and over and over again. And I've got some female friends of mine who've spent thousands of dollars on trying to find the one, whether it's through different, companies that do dating, meeting with someone that you pay for it, et cetera. It's not just, dirty, rotten Tinder or something like that. It's Tinder is dirty and rotten. Come on. It's like, you can get whatever. Anyway, that's a whole other topic that we're not going into today. But like she spent thousands of dollars and she would do things. But the main thing that I noticed that she would always do is go to the wrongness of her.
Mm.
And it's like, stop making yourself wrong. Like, what is it that you're asking for? And also, what is it that you're asking for? And there was a movie, what was it called? I think it was called Up in the Clouds with George Clooney. And there was this scene in it. And there's George Clooney and an older woman and a younger girl. And the younger girl's going, you know, I want a man who's like this tall. He drives this sort of car. He's got this sort of, level of education. He's like blah, blah, blah. And she's got this whole list. And the older woman looks at her and goes, wow, by the time you get to my age, you just hope he has a full head of hair and he can make you laugh, you know? And I was like, it's like, what if you gave up your expectations of what you've decided this other being has to be, right? Mm-hmm. And then start asking for something different. Like start asking for maybe someone who's kind, caring, nurturing, someone who does make you laugh. Like, is that on your quote unquote list? Or, you know, there's a friend of mine who's 6'1", and she will not even look at someone unless they're over 6'1". I'm like, you could meet this amazing friggin' guy who's 5'9", you know, like what are you making matter so much that doesn't matter? And everything that is where you destroy and uncreate it.
For sure.
Right, wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all nine, shorts, boys, perverts, and beyonds.
You know, one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got in looking at like, who is it that I would like to have a relationship with, or like, I really want a relationship, but it's not showing up for me is, excuse me, apparently I can't get it out. Making a list of all of the characteristics that you would like in a relationship, like a person, like you said, someone that's kind or funny or playful or whatever that is, or rich or whatever it is for you. And then also a list of things that you don't want, like a characteristics that you don't want in the relationship. And then when you start to look at that, that's kind of your like value list, and you can start to take action in a way that supports that, right? So like, if you want someone that's like really kind, for example, you might choose activities, you know, that are maybe a little bit more creative or a little bit, you know, more like athletic, or, you know, places where those kinds of people would be versus, I don't know, like the biker bar down the street, or not that there aren't kind bikers out there, but you know what I mean? Like just really looking at like, what action can you take? But you've got to first get clear on what it is that you want. Because you say you want a relationship, but what does that actually mean? Like, what does that actually look like? And I think, that's like, for me, that was one of the biggest things, is like creating that clarity is one of the greatest actions that you can take in inviting a relationship into your life.
Yeah, and we spoke about that on the part one of this as well, of like looking and asking for what it is that you'd like in a relationship. So, but spend the time. And like I said, it's not about telling anybody else. Mm-hmm. But in saying it's not about telling anyone else, I've got a question for you, Paula.
Okay.
What's the one thing that pops into your head of what you don't desire in a relationship?
Two things. I like someone that's unkind. Like I can't. And the second thing is, someone who's not like creative is like kind of a no for me. And it doesn't matter how, like they can be in engineering, they could be in, you know, an actual painter, they could be a mechanic, they could be whatever, but like there has to be this, like, if there's not a creative energy, can't do it.
That's interesting too, because a creative energy is somebody who actually chooses, somebody who actually asks questions and chooses and takes action. Yeah. So for me, that's like that. Oh, okay. You know, leaping forward, choosing that. Do you know, when you said before though, I asked you that question because what came into my head when you said about what you don't want, the first thing that came into my head was hygiene. Yeah. Sorry, but that's what came. I was like, hygiene.
I don't want someone who doesn't shower.
Yeah. It doesn't shower and doesn't brush their teeth or something like that. It's not going to work. I'm going to be like, yeah. So apparently hygiene is my top of my list. Because, you know, when something just pops, I was like, hygiene.
Totally. Yeah, it's true. And it's so funny when you start to look at that, because I think so often, like there were years where people were like, you know, make your list of Mr. Wonderful. And then there were years where people were like, throw away the list. Like that's the best way to do it. And I actually love this thing of like, find your list of what you do want and you don't want. And then just, it's not like a checkbox. It's just for the
No.
awareness and the energy. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily like, let me just make sure that you check off all these things. It's like, hey, universe, like, here's what I'd like to have. And what we know is it never shows up the way you think it's going to. But getting that like to me, that's like the generative energy of creating a relationship. So if you quote unquote feel stuck, I'm using finger quotes if you can't see me, which is why I also said quote unquote, but if you feel stuck and you're like, listen, I've tried everything, I've done all the dating apps, I've spent all the money on the like dating apps or the new outfits or whatever, and it's just not working for me, I would say get really clear on what it is that you'd like to create. And that naturally the universe is like, oh, okay, Simone, like, okay, Paula, I got you. Let's, and then that energy starts moving.
And admit to yourself what it is that you like.
Yeah.
That's really important. And I'd say, I love that you said that, like, it's not a checkbox. It's not, because it's not. It's like, look at if you write this list, it's like, look at it and go, is any of this friggin' relevant? Mm-hmm. Like someone's age, is that really relevant? Like don't make is someone's level of education relevant? Mm-hmm. It's like, some of the funniest people, like for me, some of the funniest people I know, it's like there is a level of intelligence that you have to be to have that humor, but it's not necessarily book smart. Mm-hmm. It's being friggin' aware, So broaden your horizons and make it, as Paula mentioned, energetic. Mm-hmm. What is it? Like I started asking for quite a few years ago, I think it was about 4 years ago, a friend of mine told me she'd started asking for more kind people to show up in her life. And I looked at her and I went, that's a great idea. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm going to start asking for that too. So I did. I started asking for more kind people to show up in my life and the willingness to receive the kindness too, because we say we want that, but how many of you are truly willing to receive kindness? And everywhere that you have not been willing to receive kindness and be kindness, will you destroy and uncreate it? Mm-hmm. Right and wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all nine, shorts, boys, proverbs, and beyonds.
And I just want to say, like, I know so often we go to the relationship with a partner or like a romantic relationship, but you can ask these same questions with friendship or your business partners or clients, staff members. Like you can actually ask for these things. I know, wild idea, but you can actually ask that all of your relationships be something that contribute to you. And I mean, please no, full stop here. We're not talking about perfect. Like no one said perfect here, but like you can ask for like people that are kind and generative and caring and a contribution, regardless of whether or not you're copulating with them. Like it doesn't not have to be limited to like relationship in the traditional sense.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I have a friend of mine who's a practitioner, and she was telling me the other day about how some of her clients, she said, they're just really, really hard work. Mm-hmm. So she ends up, I'm sorry, I'm booked. It's like, and she's actually told a couple of them, hey, it doesn't work for me to see you anymore, which I love that because she's choosing for her. Just because you're paying her money doesn't mean that she has to take your shit, And it's like, so yeah, I love that you said that. It's like, ask for clients to show up that are fun and that are actually desire to change or they value what you have, And it's like, so there's this true honoring in all relationships that you're choosing.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I love that.
Love it. Makes me want to like seal clap. I get excited because it's like, whoa, that
totally. So, with that, let's swing the pendulum to maybe the other side, sort of. So we talked about people who are like, I don't have a relationship, but I want one. The other question that people asked is, like, what do you do when a relationship goes stale? Like, what do you do? Like, you've lost interest, or it feels like the spark is gone. Like, what's the best
tool?
Go ahead. I can't wait.
Get a good bottle of champagne, open it up, pour a glass for you and your partner and say, hey, have we done what we were meant to do together? Is it time for us to like split up, to end this, what we have? Truly, because most people go and create all this havoc and they create this trauma and drama so that the other person ends up leaving or they don't want to acknowledge it. If I look at like the last relationship I was in, we were overseas in Europe, and my ex was running my bars, which is a hands-on process that we do in Access Consciousness. It's amazing. And we just weren't clicking anymore. Like it was, and it's not just like, oh, we're just not getting on today. No, it was like, you drive in the driveway. Like I used to drive in the driveway and his car would be there and I'd be like, sweet, he's home, and I'd get so excited. And you know that moment where there's too many days in a row where you drive in the driveway and you're like, he's there. It's like you still like them, but it's like, okay, maybe not as much. And we were in Europe and we weren't hanging out as much. We weren't seeking each other's company. We weren't having sex at that time a lot. And so he was running my bars and I said to him, hey, have we done what we were meant to do together? Like, is this it? Should we sort of call this part of us being together quits? Now, that was a moment that was really vulnerable for me to ask that. And he said, no, that's not it. There's just other stuff going on. And he said to me later, he said, at that moment, I should have said, yeah. And we should have ended the relationship there. But we continued for about another 18 months, I think. And that last 18 months, we shouldn't have been together. Like, we had a great relationship when we probably had a great relationship for 5 years out of 8. But the 3 years, we shouldn't have been together. Like, we should have called it quits. It's not wrong to end a relationship. Like, I always say, we're not penguins. We're not meant to mate for life, and there might be a lot of cultures and religions that disagree with that. That's your choice. It's like, for me, I never looked at, like, marriage to me, I was like, I don't get it. I mean, if you look at the history of marriage, it was done originally to, join forces together so that you could have more land, you could have more wealth, that's why you got married. And then, religion sort of stepped in and took over and all of this sort of stuff. And there's been so many, expectations and projections of why you should get married and that it is right and that you should do that and you should stay there forever and all of that and more. And for me, I was always like, if you're going to get married, choose it, right? And choose it because it's going to work for you. I'm not opposed to it. But I could not stand in front of somebody and say, I will be with you for the next 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. I don't even know what I want to be doing in 50 years' time. How do I know I want to be doing it with you? That was my point of view. So I was always like, what if relationship was more like this 5-year gig where you went, okay, you want to do 5 years? Let's give it a shot. And at the end of 5 years, no matter what was going on, you sat down. Maybe you opened up that bottle of champagne or whatever it is you want, a shot of tequila, a good coffee, your choice. But you sat down and you went, hey, how's it going for you? Is this working for you? Mm-hmm. Do you want to go another 5? Do you want to go another year? Or have we done what we were meant to do together? Like, for me, your life is this massive friggin' adventure. It's like, choose it. Stop choosing something less than so that you can please everybody else in the world rather than what it is that you would like. And for me, I don't know, my life just keeps getting better and better and better. And my ex, we talk all the time and we are so happy that we're not in a relationship together anymore. Super grateful for him and super grateful for everything that occurred. The shitty stuff, the good stuff, all of it. And I'm really happy with where I am. And I'm asking every day, what else is possible? Like, what else is possible now?
I love that. One of my other favorite things that I've heard you talk about is this was years ago, was talking about if you are looking at breaking up your relationship and maybe you're not ready to bring it to your partner, but you could look at what are the top 5, 8 things that would need to change in order for you to be happy in the relationship, in order for the relationship to work for you. And it's not a list for you to read to your partner. It's just for you, just for fun. But what you have to look at then is okay, can my partner actually deliver this? Are these unrealistic expectations, which, sorry to burst your bubble, but that's 9 times out of 10. I think that's actually the reality, is we have unrealistic expectations that we need to manage and kind of check ourselves. And once you look at that of okay, can my partner deliver this? Am I asking for more than they can actually, then they can deliver? Or do I have unrealistic expectations? I mean, those are all kind of the same sides of the same coin. But then it's you can really start to go into that. Does this actually work for me?
Yeah.
Because you've got to look at you first, and you've got to look at what your expectations are. It's so easy to blame our partners, and it's so easy to nitpick and, say all the reasons why they're terrible and you're right and they're wrong. But it's if you were actually getting real with that, what's really going on? Are you asking for something that's not possible? And, again, if they can't deliver it, does that actually work for you? And I think often when you look at it from that perspective of here are the things that they actually do deliver. And I'm so grateful for that. Like when you start to look at that list of things that don't work, it's actually not relevant and it's not as big of a deal. But it's important. We're about making lists on these last 2 episodes, I think. But it's yet another list for you to make.
But if you do look at it, like, I mean, I love that tool too, Paula, and your list might be, you know, like these 8 lists. And as Paula said, it's not about bringing it to them, but it might be something like, I want them to help more around the house or something like that. Like it could be like, hey, like it could be that simple. Okay, so but is there something else that can be done? And I write about this in the book that Brennan Watt and myself wrote, Relationship, Are You Sure You Want One? We give a lot of tools like this away, and we spoke about things like this. Like Brennan was amazing he was a good handyman. Like he was, you know, he could make things, he could fix things. He created our whole bathroom, like he designed it and tiled it and everything. Like he was good, right? So, and then if there was something around the house that needed fixing, I would ask him for help and he wouldn't do it, you know, and I'd ask him. And then about the 3rd time, and then I realized, okay, this is not going to create anything greater. So on that list would be like, hey, I require this or something. And I was like, is that the relationship I want to create with him? So I remember the day I hired a handyman and he said to me, what did you hire a handyman for? And I went, to get all these jobs done. And he laughed and he looked at me and he said, I said I'd do them. And I went, yeah. And he found this meme on Facebook and sent it to me that had this guy sitting on the couch going, I said I'd do it. You have stop asking me every 6 months. But he found it and laughed about it because we were willing to, like, I wasn't getting shitty or angry at him. It was like, hey, this stuff needs to be done. Let's hire a handyman. So I did. And then we did things like we had a cleaner once a week. And then I was like, I can't do this. I don't want to be changing the friggin' beds. I don't want to do that. So it's like, then we hired a cleaner twice a week so that they could, you know, change the sheets and wash the sheets and iron them or do all that sort of stuff, you know. So look at what is required in the household. But there's also, at one stage, one of the things on my list was money, which is a really tough topic. Like that's a topic in itself with relationships and money. And I was earning, good money, and Brendan was really good at spending it. And I mean, he would do all the cooking and do all that. Like he was such a contribution. But I said to him one day, hey, I asked him for his help. I said, can you help me? Because we're making money, but we're spending a lot of money, and it's ending up that every week we're short, basically. And he was like, oh, and looked at me, and I went, can I show you my accounts? And so we sat down on my computer and I showed him everything. And I said, look, this is what I'm earning. This is everything. And then like, this is what we're spending and blah, blah, blah. And I said to him, can you help me? And he was like, yeah. And as soon as I asked him, I was like, look, when we're going away, and it's like, is there some form of work you could do? And that's when he started working on, you know, the tech team and things like that. So that it was paying for something towards what we were creating. But you can see how these moments that if you didn't actually acknowledge what was going on and talk about it, it would turn to anger and it would turn to, you know, resentment and blame, as you said. Like it's not about blaming your partner. It's about able to going, hey, I need some help, like with this. Is that possible? You know, and having those conversations.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, this works too, like I said, with all of your relationships. Cause I know at one point that I had a roommate and we decided like we were going to pay for a cleaning lady because it became this point of kind of contention of like the dishes or the bathrooms or like just, you know, the general kind of cleaning of the apartment. And I remember once talking to the cleaning lady and she kind of was like, wow, like I'm so grateful that you guys come twice or that you have me come twice a week. And I was like, listen, some people pay for therapy. Like we pay for you.
I love that.
I just laughed, but I was like, it's so true because for me, like creating, and I think it's a similar story to what you said with the handyman. Like it's that thing where I look at this list and I'm like, I could be upset with this person because they're not cleaning or because they're not, you know, whatever, retiling the bathroom or whatever that is. Or I could actually put that energy in generating revenue that will pay for the person that will resolve that. And then I can have ease in my relationship. So it's kind of like, but you can't get there until you're willing to look at the things that are driving you crazy in your relationship. And then you're like, wait, there's actually a solution here.
Hey, you and I have had conversations like working with each other going, okay, so, you know, what's going on here? Or, you know, because people disappear in relationships, right? So it's like, why are they disappearing? And instead of getting cranky or frustrated or blaming or resentment or anything, why are they disappearing? go, hey, what's going on? Do you actually still want to do this job, or, blah, blah, blah. And like, we've had conversations about, you've got various jobs, like most people that I know, like there's a diversification, and I love working with you. And one of my favorite things about working with you is your creativity and your ability to extrapolate and be able to perceive where I would like to go with something, and then you'll pull in all these random things, and I go, yeah, and you just made it bigger and better and greater. And that is not something that's really that tangible. It's not a doing thing, you can't go, oh, look, this person just wrote this out or something like that. To me, it's so energetic, and it's such a contribution to me. And so we've had discussions, because you originally used to do my social media, like literally uploading stuff. And it's like, now we have more of a social media team, which works. And even now I'm looking at even expanding it even more, because there's more things that I would like to do, and bigger and greater and more. But it doesn't mean making something less than or making people less than. It's like, what else can you add here? Good question to ask in all your relationships is like, what energy can we add here to create this to be greater?
And you know what, can I speak to that? And thank you so much for just that beautiful acknowledgement, because I have, I've been working with you for a while now and creating in different projects. And even recently, like, I worked a project that was, I could just say it, like I worked a fashion show for Versace, which was,
it was so exciting. I was so excited for you though.
But that's the thing that I want to speak to, is because for a while, like I would feel like I had to keep my quote unquote other job, like, right. So I'm a hairdresser by trade, for those of you that don't know. So I have like a salon clientele, and I have other projects that I work on. And for a long time, it was very like segmented in my mind. And so a lot of times when Simone says like I would disappear, it was because I was like deep in a training, or because I had this like project for the day or a photo shoot or whatever. And that was so consuming that I would separate. And so after having these conversations where she was like, hey, like, where'd you go? You disappear. And I was like, oh, sorry. Like, here's what I'm doing when I'm disappearing. So after that initial conversation, even this last time with like the Versace show, like I was like live tweeting basically directly to Simone, like, here's this just happened, or, oh, here's the model, or here's what's happening. And it was such a different energy. And like having you be so excited for me was like so cool and so generative. And it created so much in my world. And I think like we're not taught to do that, right? No. Like we're not taught to allow people in and to like lower our walls and barriers, which really is what it is. Like being willing to just let people in and kind of expose ourselves and be, like be really present with like what's going on in our lives. And I know that, some of that has come from like years of us working together. And so kind of like just getting to know each other better, but also too, that willingness for you to say, hey, you don't have to disappear. Like, I actually love that you're creating all these other things. Let it contribute. And then for you to be excited, like it created something so different in my world, even just in that one specific. And I could list so many times where that's occurred. But I think that's like an important thing for people to realize, is it doesn't have to be separate.
I do too. And I want to give an example of that as well, because many, many years ago, when I started working with Access Consciousness, and I still had this business of mine, Good Vibes for You. And I remember talking to Gary one day, and I said, can you help me? And I said, I feel like I'm cheating. Like I'm literally having an affair. And that was the energy of it. Like when I was working with Good Vibes for You and I was at some music festival and doing all of that, I was like, oh my God, I'm cheating on Access. And then when I was working with Access, I was like, I'm cheating on Good Vibes for You. So like you said, you sort of had to like put them into compartments, but you weren't enjoying it, because I was like, I'm literally like, I'm going to get caught out. I'm going to get this, rather than, okay, what if your whole life is so diversified and you have all of these choices all of the time, but everything is included in everything? Like you don't have, for years people go, I hope you get to have time off. You get to have this. And I'm like, time off from what? My life, my, more awareness, more consciousness, more like creation. No, thanks. It's like whether I'm going for a walk on the beach or I'm in the shower, or, just going off to sleep or doing whatever. It's like, I'm always aware of what the possibilities are around me. And so I know when I have had that conversation with you and with others as well, it's like, include me in it. And it's like, I love the way you say I'm a hairdresser by trade. You're actually extremely friggin' successful, and you've won a lot of awards, and you do a lot of fucking thing out there. So, and we'll have her details on her Instagram below in the show notes too. So don't forget to subscribe. Like, she's not just a hairdresser by trade. She's very well known for what she does. And I am so grateful that you have that, and I get to play with you as well. So it's like, it's not about leaving something in order to, it's like include everything. And to me, it's like, what else can you add to your life? And I've got to say too, I gave you some home play at the Versace. She sends me this photo. Can I say this? She sends me this photo of all the male models, and they're beautiful, right? Young, beautiful boys, but they've all got their serious face on. And I was like, wow, they're really beautiful. And I was like, but God, it would be nice if they smiled. And I said, okay, your home play today is to get me a video of one of them smiling. Did she do it?
Nailed it.
It was so cute. You can see this look on this guy's face, like she's like filming his whole like body going up, and she's makes this this like sort of, I don't know, this tone. She's like fashion, and like says this thing, and he just starts smiling and like looking at her with this really coy look, and I was like, nailed it, did it.
Yeah, and I think like there's so much more that's available for all of us in relationship. And it starts with you being willing to get really, really vulnerable with what it is that you'd like to create. Like, where are you at and where would you like to go? And then what action can you take to get you there? And we've talked about so many tools in this episode. If you didn't catch the episode before, like, have a listen. I mean, you've done so many podcasts around relationships and the different topics, and you have a relationship done different class coming up.
I do. It'd be I think it'd be really almost like now. No, but it's like, as this podcast is released, it's going to be really soon. So I don't know when that is. Just check the notes below. And and come on, it's like relationship done different. It's going to be fun. And if you don't come to my class, there are relationship done different facilitators all over the world. It's a topic that most people so want to get right. But what if you're willing to be wrong? And what if you're willing to change everything and anything? And as Paula said, get vulnerable and take some action in all of your relationships. It's only going to increase your life to be better and greater. So, Paula, I want to thank you so much for hijacking my show once again with me. I don't know if it's a true hijack because I'm actually here. But anyway, we like saying that you hijacked it. And I think coming up in the future, we're going to do a little bit of a money series as well, and also a series on business, because I know you guys do have a lot of questions out there. And if you do have more questions, follow us on the Choice, Change and Action Instagram and slide into our DMs and let us know what you want us to be talking about.
Very nice.
Thank you for having us here. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Paula Peralta. Mwah.
Mwah. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to hit the follow or subscribe button on your favorite listening platform to get notified of new episodes. We read all the reviews, so if there's any topic you would like to hear about, let us know. If you'd like to know more about the tools, information, and classes mentioned in the podcast, head on over to SimoneMilasas.com and follow me on Instagram at Simone Milasas, or the podcast has its very own link on Instagram at Choice, Change and Action. Don't forget, you can download the show notes, and lastly, have way too much fun today.